Welcome to Crypto Talk Radio, the podcast for everyday investors like you. Visit us on the web at cryptotalkradio.net. And now, here's your host, Leister.
Thank you for that, Bailey, and welcome everybody out there in Crypto Talk Radio, found at cryptotalkradio.net. Geez, I come back from Christmas and it's interesting. I got notification, by the way, payments coming. So that's always good. So that's en route. And then contractor is going to be fixing something that I had another situation need to be fixed. This guy showed up out of thin air, wanted to do the business, fair price. We're engaged on that one. He's going to get the order in, get that done. So I'll get some work finally working even in winter. That's cool. And I get to help out a small business, help keep people fed and all that stuff, which is part of why I like working with contractors and small business sides. So I'm cool there. Precious metals, once again, are spiking. Jeez, look at palladium. So I'm sitting good there. All was good. And then I came back to a flurry of emails, including threats, and it was like, geez, people just don't spend time with their families. Maybe they don't have families to spend time. Don't know. Let's chat with what's going on. And I'm going to surprise some of those that are listening. Chances are we will not be recording on Tuesday, thus the advanced full-length episode in anticipation of potential off time. I don't know 100. I just figured I'd get it done and be out. CoinMarketCap.com. We're going to look at Bitcoin and have a couple of laughs before we have more laughs on a different topic. But Bitcoin currently trending, or should I say middling, I think is more appropriate. In the $87,000 mark, I see a downward trend on Bitcoin. And a commenter had a very comical statement I thought was interesting. It's not accurate, but it's funny. Quote, UIO2PNEAKSU. I don't know what that means. I don't know. Says, quote, Bitcoin is becoming more stable of a stable coin than Tether and USDC combined. Now, obviously that's not true. What they're saying is that the price movement, the volatility has cooled off. That is accurate, but stable coin's a bit extreme. And then another person called out that there's a lot of shorting activity happening on Bitcoin, which would imply that people are pretty confident that it is going to go down. And in a past episode, I made a price target of about $82,000. I'm not sure. And then Da Vinci Jeremy went more extreme into like the 20,000s. I don't know exactly where it's going to go. I got no idea. I'm just targeting 82 as the most likely that I saw based on trends, only trends. I'm going to come a little bit up and say maybe 82, 84 range, somewhere in the middle, but I don't see it going back up unless something major in terms of catalyst hits before, people can tell. And it's not going to be strategies buys. We're talking something larger, like we're talking some sort of a sentiment-based catalyst that I don't think exists, not in the short term. Maybe something overseas, maybe something out of UK. Doubt it. US, doubt it. China, doubt it. Japan, doubt it. India, doubt it. I don't see that there would be an origin of a sentiment-based catalyst that would salvage the ship from what I see and what I know. I want to caveat, and I only do so repeatedly because there are certain people that don't seem to understand how this works. I want to caveat that what I'm sharing is a prediction. A prediction is something that is shared based on observed information, behavior, patterns. It is not evidence. It is not a factual statement, nor is it presented as a factual statement. It's presented as a prediction. The interpretation of the prediction will differ for different people because different people see different signs, different people see different elements, different people live in different countries that may be aware of different catalysts for which I don't have that information. Some would say, well, then you should make a prediction. That kills the whole market because if we go off Jim Cramer, he, I would argue, is qualified to make predictions despite getting them wrong 95% of the time. And none of you that say that would tell Jim Cramer that he should stop making predictions. In fact, people are profiting off of his wrong predictions. The value of predictions is not the accuracy of the prediction. It is to evaluate the prediction and compare it against what you see. This is called due diligence, and make your own decision about what that means. Everything in information works that way, or it should. We should take what somebody predicts or says or asks, process it in your mind. And it might be something you don't care about. And if you don't, then you ignore it, right? It's all simple. When I say that I see Bitcoin going down, it's not because I don't believe in Bitcoin itself. That's faulty. That's jumping to conclusions. I say it looks down simply because of a trend on a graph based on the last month, because I always zoom out to the month chart, as I tell you, which is usually linked to a pattern, which is often indicative of the future direction. There are always catalysts, negative and positive. The FTX crash, great example. Just prior to that crash, we were pump. The FTX stuff happens and unravels. The Terra crash, pump. I think it hit $160 or something. There's always negative catalysts that derail what otherwise looks like a pattern that sometimes you don't know, sometimes you do. Sometimes you could see the housing bubble, 2008. We could see that happening. We saw it play out. We saw the Washington Mutuals and the Wachovias of the world just issuing loans, often no down payments, or you don't have to prove your income or whatever. We saw the value of homes skyrocket. We saw people take out home equity lines of credit, use their homes as ATMs, buy a whole bunch of expensive boats, and also this was on display. And we knew it's unsustainable just because of the nature of what it is, especially when you issue loans that are no doc loans or no down payment loans. You're completely derailing the very fundamentals that make the process stable. So what I'm saying and suggesting is that something similar happens in crypto now that the institutionals have gotten in play. They're able to disrupt what otherwise was a reasonably predictable market. That's why people think that the whole 4-year halving, look it up, is no longer as predictable of an indicator that it used to be, because the 4-year halving that was largely linked to the decentralized trading as well as peer-to-peer trading and to a lesser degree the spot market side. That halving cycle never thought about how the institutionals, the ETPs, the ETFs, liquidity levels, it never thought, governments sitting on back, it never thought about these other disruptors that then affect the landscape, meaning that we have to create a new model. We have to rethink how does this work? How do we get ahead of predictions? And I think it's going to get easier to predict Bitcoin's movement. But I also think that the glory days of $1 million, we are closer to casino realm than we ever have been before. By which I'm saying, I don't think it's impossible to hit $1 million. I say it's a casino now, because if it does, the higher it goes, the amount risk of drops, significant drops, increases. There's a correlation now that wasn't there before. We also saw the original holders, and they started dumping off the winter mutes, and they start dumping. You now see how negative catalysts can impact what otherwise was reasonably predictable as upward. This is the new reality that people are calling out. It's starting in 2026, arguably. There was no real, quote, altcoin season. There was no Bitcoin rush to 200,000. There were ups, certainly so, but understand how those large players getting into Bitcoin, it's mostly Bitcoin, how that changed the scape. And all I'm saying is that when you hear me talk about precious metals so fervently over multiple episodes, it's because it's a hedge, right? You see something's happening over here. We don't yet know exactly where it's going to settle, but you can never go wrong in diverse portfolios with precious metals kind of backing you up. And people that abandoned precious metals for X number of years because they went YOLO into crypto starting in 2019, 2020, are now seeing the fallouts of that. They might still hold fast and say there's going to be something there, and there's nothing wrong with that strategy. I'm not saying that you should sell crypto, by no means. I'm saying that diversification, add hedging against these drops until it all settles is what I'm suggesting. That's where I thought precious metals played a really strong part overall. Once I knew and I saw for the first time, I started getting into a lot of these, and silver, I'm like, come on, you got to be kidding me with this price. $44 an ounce for silver, and you're talking over $3,000 for gold. I knew something was off. I couldn't put my finger on exactly what it was till I dug into it, realized, well, geez, this manipulation is real on the silver side. If that manipulation is real on the silver side, if we go just on straight rarity, gold has a rarity, but the rarity of gold is in question, right? Silver has a rarity, but silver also has a stronger use than people thought, and that use is increasing with certain of these green energy technologies that leverage silver, and silver is the most viable asset to use. But then you talk about platinum and palladium, even base metals like copper. All of these have some separate use that can't be understated. So then precious metals has a dual benefit that crypto lacks. One, utility. Two, scarcity. Bitcoin, by and large, holds back. It holds itself on scarcity. There's only a certain number of assets. Nobody ultimately controls it. It's you own the asset. You're away from the banking system. Is that really true anymore? If it turns out that the very financiers that we're talking about take custody of a large amount of the liquidity pools, is it really true that you'd be coupled from the fiat side? I argue no. Some might argue yes. Who's to say who's right and wrong? I say, though, that I'm not never telling you to sell, because I think you only lose when you sell. I say diversify. Get into more different types of assets, because if you don't, one asset class can just kill you on the open market. And I'll caveat again. I dislike having to do it, but I understand the increased need to do it. There are people out there that would swear to you, they would straight swear to you with a straight face that crypto's the future and that I don't know what I'm talking about. If you believe that, I celebrate your right to gamble, because that's what you'd be doing. I celebrate it. I celebrate people who admit that. I would rather gamble on crypto. I don't believe in stable assets. I don't believe in these that have a 10-year turnover. I celebrate it. Never once have I said, don't get into crypto. Never once have I said, sell your crypto. I believe in diversification because I'm a conservative in that regard. I'm not a gambler in that regard. I'm a conservative and always have been. That is the large reason I was insulated from these large-scale businesses like Satama, for example, because I took conservative approaches, even though I could have made more money. Libero is another good example. I made some money on Libero, but I certainly wasn't made a millionaire because I already saw the flags on the thing. I just said, okay, let's do this part, get my money back, and then let the rest ride for profit, knowing that I could have put, 10 times what I put in on the pre-sale when it was, because I had it, and I probably would have made a good mid six figures if I'd done that. I'm conservative. I don't know. And the other piece is I don't know who's really behind it. That to this day, I don't know who really was behind Libero/Thorium. It seems like they're all gone. The project sites are still out there, but the people, I have no idea who was behind that to this day. I have no clue. That experience, going through the coverage I did on Seifu, going through the coverage I did on all these other ones at that time, is what made me more conservative in approach. And Green Chart and Parabolic made me more conservative. And Anyflect made me more conservative and say, let me just step back and just create my own path and then advocate that approach to people who are willing to listen. Not everybody's willing to listen. And that's what we're doing here. The remainder of my episode is we can describe it even, I guess, as kind of I don't want to say shock jock experience or response. I don't think that's the right answer. I don't know how to categorize it, but I am going to share some information that will surprise some people, perhaps. But I think it's necessary because it's becoming ever increasingly clear that these people that are scammers, I'm talking straight up scammers, I'm talking ones that they're on record having ripped a project. So Seifu, the car salesman, Brian Saylor, right? The people behind Titano, arguably, I would say. The people ultimately behind Thorium, I can arguably say now. The people behind Strange Emu, certainly. The people behind Saitama, absolutely. John Caroni on SafeMoon, arguably. Cliff Fettner on Shinja, arguably. VFam, Robo Emu / Saitama, absolutely. I can go down a list of these notable ones where they were directly in front of something that caused the loss of wealth for people due to their actions. Sam Bankman-Fried, Poof Hair, right? Do Rug Pull, aka Do Kwon. It got me thinking that why is it that some of these are so successful at what they do and continue to be? There's a person who was alleged to be associated to a project called Big Eyes Coin. This project actually still exists in its destroyed state. Big Eyes Coin, if you look at the logo, if you look at the pre-sale, if you look at there's nothing really to it that anybody can hook into. It reminds me of Kuma Inu, ironically. And I did a coverage ages ago about Leica, which was a dog coin. And somebody wrote up a Medium post that gave the impression they were an insider around Leica. And they gave an impression that the SHIB deployer wallet basically was under someone's control, and that person was responsible for a lot of the dog meme coins that were being spun up over time. If you look at what's happening with Leash from the SHIB ecosystem, at one point it launches with 100,000 in supply. It was initially proposed to be a rebase token, which was popular at that time. Later, they stated they're not going to make it a rebase. They removed that code. They're just going to launch it as a regular rewards token. 100,000 supply. Skyrockets to, I believe, $6,000. Crap down. I think it went into the hundreds, if not 2 digits. At some point, rebasing gets enabled. People don't know how. Separately then, just before this, the Bone, which is supposed to be the gas for Shibarium that nobody uses, Bone, from a supply perspective only, just supply. There's no logical reason it should be under $100 per. If there was proper marketing and proper application of it beyond it's the gas for Shibarium, which there never was. Everybody focused on SHIB. SHIB's story starts with, I want to say it was 100 quadrillion in supply. They gave half the supply to Idiot Vitalik, who then burned it, and that became a narrative that a lot of the dog tokens then would do as their homage to this guy. And so there's this pattern between 2021 onward of these dog tokens sending to Idiot to have them burn them. There was a project, and I forget the name specifically of it, but he received a bunch of tokens and he dumped them. He just sold them. He didn't burn them. He just sold them and killed the project. That was the origin of me calling him idiot in the first place. Do I suppose he's a scammer? No. I just think he's an idiot because he's ultimately sitting high on the hog off of projects that have no real use case. Ethereum is his one true achievement. And the Ethereum side, there's a thing that said, okay, we launched an unregistered security and the government helped us do it. And then we profited off it, and then we dumped it, and then we gave it to the market. That's basically what happened. When it was proof of work, there was profitability across the spectrum. I can personally attest to this. When they moved it to proof of stake, the profitability of all these EVM tokens dropped because the mining was the key to it. Proof of stake then, the government had said that staking arguably creates a security under the Gensler era. Nothing changed, though, because Ethereum was always the backbone. It was created to be that backbone for all the other ones to kind of hook into. And then proof of stake was the jump because you're talking cheaper gas, you're talking faster transactions. All that's true. BNB on the side then is doing its business, and people are questioning how it's able to sustain such value given this disruption that's happening. BNB at a point was 2 figures for sure. And then it skyrockets to $1,000. Well, there's a lot of mechanics to BNB. There's a lot of use because a lot of these memes were built on the Binance Smart Chain. And then the getting rid of the old Binance chain, the original one, the Beacon chain. What I'm getting at is all of these different networks and chains and deployments and the automation of contracts and all these things that are designed to increase engagement with all the different chains created dilution, look it up, in the overall crypto space. My theory, and for some that don't understand this, a theory is something that you posit, look it up, to say, this is what I'm banting about in my mind as a likely root cause. It's a theory. A theory can only be proven or disproven. Sometimes you can't do either, but it remains a theory that people can make theories, and they are entitled to make theories irrespective of what some tell you. People are entitled to theorize all they care to. Certain ones that come back and say, we don't like your theory, are entitled to dislike the theory. It does not negate the right to position a theory. The theory I've got in this is that there's a category of people. I used to have a category of projects I called cucarachas. Titano was one of those. They're all over the place. The rebase and the unrealistic APRs and all that stuff. That's the cucarachas. That's a category of projects that just were popping up at the time. We don't see them anymore. But at that time, they were popping up like crazy. There was a category of these dog memes, the Kuma Inu, Satama Inu, what was that? Cody, I believe. Yeah, Cody or whatever that was. All these ones, right? We also now have this category, not now, but we have this category, and there's two, I think, it's a split category. There's a category of money movers. I'll describe them as money movers. They're people that have access to wealth who are enabling crashes, pumps and dumps, and scams. They're enabling it by way of access to funding, because the whole thing behind a project, what's the cycle? We design or envision something. We put fancy marketing around it. We maybe do a pre-sale, maybe not, but usually there's some sort of a pre-sale of some kind. We talk about the things we're going to do with it. We then pump liquidity into it, and then the amount of liquidity that pumps into it and the amount of energy around the marketing of it creates what? FOMO, hype. We now have hyped people into believing that this is going to be a solid project that's worth you investing in. Terms such as 10x, terms such as bonus, terms such as to the moon, are all used to generate a form of urgency on you to get into something. It's interesting that money mover tier, how known they are, and yet remain largely insulated from enforcement. So Dell Crypto is a great example. This is a guy that has access to money. He himself, to my knowledge, has never scammed anyone, to my knowledge. However, what we do know, because he said so, is that he has access to money that he provides in projects, usually early, and then he'll claim back the money and his profits that he's entitled. And he said on a live stream, I'm from the streets. I'm going to do what I want to do. He can. It's his money. The people who are buying in to the project might disagree with that stance, but the truth is he is entitled to do what he's doing. Where it starts to draw a fine line is if he had inside knowledge of the intent to dump off the project by the developers. You know, I'm saying that the developers colluded with him to say, give us this money. you'll be able to get your money back when people buy in. That's what Satama was doing, is enticing people to get in and buy in and buy in and buy in, but being treated as exit liquidity on the back end side. That's what they were doing. And that's why the SEC ultimately, and then later FBI, went after them. But Del Crypto, again, yes, he's in as an investor. He has, because he has access to that money flow. I don't think it's all his. I think he's able to generate the money to buy into projects, and he's approached early to buy in. None of that is wrong or below board. That is all straight line. There, again, people that invested that lost money in a project he was involved would differ with that opinion. They would call him a scammer. I say, though, if we look at the definition of a rug pull, it's developer makes money available and then makes it not available. Okay. So I say Del Rug Pull, aka Del Crypto. If he's a part of a project, he makes money available and then makes it not available right away, as in take all of it. If he's taking profits, no. But if you take all of it out, okay. Let's say, for sake of argument, that Richard Hart, he had projects that were generating money through different outlets and then spun different projects and then Pulse Chain and all of that continues. His message, he said, people made money on what we did. If you make money on it, is it a scam? It's an open question. Now the government's trying to go after him because of mostly Hex and the idea of the way Hex was built, which is deposits, kind of like a CD structure, and its supply. If I look at Zen Crypto, XEN, positioned as basically you can create your own, you mint your own tokens, and then you can sell them for your own price, and sure, but there was nothing really fundamentally behind it, and it crashes and burns. Is that guy, Nick Levin, I think it is he a scammer because he did that, or is it just that he sold you on something that wasn't? This is what I'm saying, like, is it really that they scammed you or that they sold you on something that wasn't sustainable to begin with? And there was no due diligence to dig into the fundamentals before giving them the money. That's the open question. I remember this project, C Plus Charge, I covered ages ago. And I said, okay, well, it looks good, but I don't know how you're pulling it off. And there's a lot of open questions. And people said that this C Plus Charge was associated, Binance stuff's talked about, that there's an organization behind all of these spun up projects, these one-off spun up projects. I forget the name off top, but there's an organization that's behind all of these. That's kind of a marketing aim. Are they scammers for doing that? We can make a case. What got me to thinking, these money movers, when these projects are created and they create a marketing something and there's no real solid to the marketing, it's just marketing. Nothing tangible. If people choose to buy in at that time based on only on the marketing, right? They're saying, I'm going to YOLO all my money in this because I believe and it's my risk. It is their risk. Now, if it turns out that said project that they put all their money in later is outed to be, if not a scam, the closest thing to, is that we have to understand the fault, right? Is the fault that of the person who put the money in, or the fault of the developer, or the fault of the money backer who's marketing the thing? The people who put money in would likely say, well, it's the money backer and it's the developer because they misled and misrepresented. They're not wrong. The money backer, mostly the marketer, would say, we didn't promise XYZ. The marketing on the sites might have made statements saying up to, this, 10X or whatever, and then a date in the future. And they're doing that because they're trying to insulate themselves from making a hard, fast commit as to when you would realize a benefit. That's part of the game. If they tell you, we are not telling you that on day one, you're going to make $500,000. We're telling you that your investment would be worth X at this point in time. We don't know exactly when the point in time is. If they then misrepresent dates, or the dates keep moving, right? Or the scale and scope keeps shifting and things change, now you get into misrepresentation, real misrepresentation. If the marketing team does that in order to extend to get more money out of people, you can appreciate that it's likely a scam. Because if they could not properly estimate how much money they needed to do stuff up front, how is it that they can then manage those funds once they get them? If you cannot estimate how much you need to do a project, it's likely you're not going to know how much money it takes to run said project either. There are flaws. The counter is that Kickstarter, Indiegogo, and other crowdfunding sites, how are they really any different than what I just described? Those services allow these providers to set a goal and allows them to change the goal and allows them to delay and allows them to shift dates. And I'm hopeful, perhaps naively, I'm hopeful that there are people that are critically thinking about what I'm getting at here. How then are crypto pre-sales, any crypto pre-sale, how is it any different than what happens in the Kickstarters and Indiegogos of the world? Indiegogo and Kickstarter both make no promises that you're going to get your money back. The only guarantee they have is when you can prove that that's straight fraud, that you can prove it's a fraudulent business. Like, who was that? I think it was somebody that said that, yeah, my dad is in the hospital, whatever, and I need money because it turned out that it wasn't true. Like, and then we could prove it. The proof is the only reason that the crowdfunding can be derailed, is you have to prove it. Otherwise, no. Money can absolutely be said. There was a lady. There was a lady who ran up on, I think it was like a little Mexican kid or something. And she ran up on and started throwing racial epithets or something. And a bunch of people noticed what was going on and they outed her publicly. Her job fired her. She did a crowdfund and people paid her like $100,000 because they sympathized with, well, they're just words, right? That was not taken down. She got paid on that stuff. All I'm saying and suggesting is that crowdfunding is really no different when you really boil it down to how crypto pre-sales work. With the same level of inherent risk, most of those are not going to be a fraud per se that you can prove. They'll just position fancy, and we're in a world now where AI has created the ability to generate video and photo close indistinguishable to real world. So you can't really know unless you have real people walking with the product and using the product, which many of them don't do. I was part of a crowdfund for a movie. My name is in the credits for said movie because I helped crowdfund it. When it initially was put out, the movie was for one person who was going through basically a drug and alcohol addiction recovery. And it was somebody I knew. It was somebody, not personally, but I knew them. It was somebody that I had grown up around or aware of. And I got a chance to talk to this person. So I was sympathetic to this was what was happening. And that's what compelled me to buy in this. In the middle, there were delays and delays and delays. And then all of a sudden they retitled it away from that person and positioned it to a different person. The new person that they were positioning it to, I had no negative on that person. It was the same situation. I knew that person. I was aware of that person. I grew up. It was the same. They were in the same era for me. So I wasn't against it. What I was against is this should have been a different project. You should have focused on this person that you promised and this person in a different financial, but you combined it. So basically the first person's footage was just rolled into the second person's video. And I didn't conceptually agree with it given the delays. And what they said at the time was, we did this so that we could generate more funding and give you more product, but we also wanted to have something that would get us on, like the Netflixes of the world or whatever with the movie, which I think did work. And then they said, well, the streaming side, they're going to see it first. So this is all DVD based. So us that paid for the DVD, we're not going to get it first. The world's going to see it via streaming first before you get the DVD. I got the DVD. They came through with the DVD that they said. My name's in the credits like they said, but I'm like, wait a minute. Me and many people were pissed. It's like, wait a minute. The whole point was we're funding something. We should be the first receivers of it. Why are you releasing it to streaming before you're releasing it to us? That doesn't seem fair. At the end of the day, we received what it was we paid for. but the terms change midstream. The Kickstarters and the Indiegogos allow them to do that. They allow them to change because there's things, it's just an idea at the point it goes up there. That's what's made crypto pre-sales so successful, is that they position it as, this is an idea that we've got. We're confident we can do it. We're asking this much money. We believe it can happen, but we need the flex to be able to adjust and change. And so we'll tell you, here's the roadmap and here's the tokenomics, and we'll put them in a form that we can make these changes, and we'll tell you in our telescam what's going on. And people then fall for it because crowdfunding in general has conditioned them to believe that this is normal. That's why they keep falling. So somebody came by the channel and they made the analogy, and they asked a direct question. I appreciate they asked the question. They straight up direct and said, basically, you're either with us or you're not. That's a weird question, isn't it? Because we've trained people because of these scams that do happen, and because of these iffy pre-sales, and because of this iffy crowdsourcing. We've trained people that anybody who is critical, anybody asking questions, anybody who is just literally saying, this is what I feel. They're critical in analysis. They're saying, I don't think that's worth it. I think you should stay away from it. I don't. We treat that as negative or the enemy. That's the default now, because they've been conditioned to fall for this trap known as crowdfunding. And so then it creates essentially a form of Stockholm syndrome. You're in a project, you believe so fervently, look it up, in this, you don't want to hear anything that convinces you away from it. We now, today, have an evolution. We have reached a crossroads of Stockholm syndrome and confirmation bias. We only want to hear stuff that jives with what we believe. We want to believe, and we want to hear people support our belief, not the people that contradict it and why. That's where it is. So when the person came and said, well, they used two terms in one statement, family and army. No, you can't do that. You can't do that. And I'll get into that in the next episode because I think it's a larger conversation. Suffice to say, in summary, I believe that these money backers, I believe that they cannot be defeated by fighting war. When I say fighting, I'm talking direct engagement. I don't believe you beat them because they're already ready for it. And the extensiveness of their asset pool gives them enough to be able to insulate against that. There's a person who's a money backer. This is my close. That's a money backer. And this person is reasonably well known across crypto. This person has a statement that they have kind of hooked into. Persistence beats resistance. It's not his term. He just adopted it and kind of embraced it. This person uses that to compel everything that he does. It is the pushing force behind him. If we break it down, persistence beats resistance. What are we really suggesting there? We're suggesting that the more you fight against this, the more he's just going to keep pushing. His asset pool will sustain him longer than it takes for you to fight. And then the fighting wears out, and then you lose. There were allegations that this person was involved in other projects where that had happened, and there are certain people who have put on record that this person did these things. Whether they have inside knowledge or not, I don't know. But if it's true that this person has managed to get away with, at this point, hundreds of millions of dollars across multiple different projects and has not been beaten yet and is still out there doing it, if that's true, and if it's true that this person is still allowed to run companies, which I'm pretty sure that's true, and if it's true that this person is still allowed to form companies, pretty sure that's true, and if it's still true that this person's not been locked up by any means, why? Because if that person is ultimately a money backer for something, we have to understand what it is that that person is accused of. If that person's accused of putting money into a project that ultimately makes false promises and misrepresents what's happening, we can make a case. But that person hasn't done, other than the one company that we do know of. That company filed bankruptcy. To my knowledge, it still exists. I don't know for sure, but to my knowledge, it still exists, just filed bankruptcy. That may be a form of insulation. This is all theory. Point, though, there are those that will look at something that happens and they go to war. They go to straight war. They say, I'm going to engage. Intelligence be damned. When I say intelligence, I don't mean covert ops. I mean smart. Be smart and have a strategy, not just a tactic. I mean a strategy, as in outsmart. When we say outsmart, what are we suggesting? Arguably, we can say that Sam Bankman-Fried was outsmarted. We can argue that's the case. We can argue that certainly Do Rugpool, aka Do Kwon, was outsmarted by the people that did the Bitcoin business with him. They outsmarted him. And then they were freed and free as a bird. Outsmarted. Ben Armstrong was outsmarted. My point is that you beat money backers, money source, you beat them by outsmarting them. Those that just, I think the term used was officers in an army charging, charge. It sounds good and it gives you a feel good. Is it really going to make you win? Maybe. But usually it's Sun Tzu and the art of war, the real art of war, which is not always engage. If you read it, it's about smarts and being intelligent about how you approach it. So what I determined from this engagement back and forth and ongoing and knowledge and processing and thinking and holidays and wow, it's actually easier. It's actually even easier than all that. So I said, well, let me step back. I know a person that was in prior to all of this that may have some knowledge that may be of value to me. When I say value to me, I'm saying it probably won't be shared with you. It's value to me because I'd like to know. I take that. I say, okay, my own victory, as suck as this is, I'm going to say that this person, if it's true that they are engaged, and I don't know that they are, but if it is true, I'm going to say that this person will end up the victor. And I'm going to say they're going to end up the victor because I suspect that they are smarter than people think he is. That they are. Because maybe it's not one person. So I'm going to say they, because it could be multiple people, to be fair. Point is that my theory is army war, I think, will be Pyrrhic. Look it up. Victory. I suspect that this person or people are ultimately going to, quote, win. What win means, I don't know. Might be as simple as another Big Eyes coin, type situation. Might be as simple as just a basic C+ charge. Wish I remember the organization. I used to know the name. It's something they do. What they do is articles and talk about all these projects and pre-sales. They do a whole bunch of stuff, and there's a whole org. And the question was whether they're associated with this person, and that was never directly connected. But I think that this person is going to win, or these people, because it could be more than one. So, if there's questions about the coverage, you know where to reach me. CryptoTalk.fm, hit the contact form. It's the way to reach me. It always has been. I have never seen cryptocurrency in such a vulnerable state since I got in it years ago. Vulnerable is the best term I can attribute to what I see. And it's no different than the money market. It's no different than fiat. There are these wealthy people who are puppet masters. And there are people on those strings dancing for the money market people and the people on the strings are convincing other people to follow. That's and it's not, that's what I'm saying. It's not even just the memes. It's the Bitcoin too world. It's the Ethereum too world. It's the HBAR. All of them is all being controlled, dictated, managed by the money people. They've smartened up to the business, to use the term, and they've injected themselves under the hood, and they've made moves. And the influencer tier, they're one of, not only, but they're one of those that are the puppet on the string. They're dancing for ultimately the money people, not even the project people. The project people they're an extension of the money people to some degree. Sometimes the project people don't know that the money people are malicious in intent or mind, or that they're selfish in intent. I would argue that's a crypto bubble. Because if you're a millionaire, what's your motivation? To become a billionaire, which this person allegedly, that's an aspiration for them to do. So why would you not assume that their intentions might be malicious? And then we do lockups and vesting and all these that only harm the retail side. They do not harm the wealthy. They don't. In summary, I am going to do my own digging into the money side. Mostly because I'm fascinated, but because I acknowledge at least this one, if not multiple, this one for sure, is going to be successful in their quest to take a lot of money from people. And all I can do is watch it happen, because unfortunately these people are very good puppet masters. They're good at what they're doing. They're good at steering the ship to fool people into a false sense. And so you watch it and it's like, you're sending them to the slaughter is what you're doing. Reminds me of the Star Trek episode. That ship's coming back through time and it's destined to be destroyed, and it's destined to happen. That's what I see. I see, geez, it's destined to go that. It's destined to happen again. I actually saw a new project, and I'm going to reach out to this one to try to defray what I see. But I saw a new project that called out, that project is a scam. We're not. Here's our names. Here's where we're from. It's out of Dubai. And I said, I'm going to reach out to them and see if they're willing to talk to me. Because that's the one hint I've got of legitimacy, is if you're willing to talk to me. So I can hit you with questions and people can hear the answer publicly. I'm going to reach out to this one that was brought to my attention. I'm actually going to reach out to this other one that I think is going to be a winner somehow. I don't think I'll get a response from that one. But I at least want to make the attempt. I at least want to say, let's chat. Let's put the conversation out there and defray that narrative. If I'm wrong, right, and you're not having that and you're not doing something, let's talk it out. That's my contribution. That's my Christmas gift. Amidst a fall of a various troubling amount of snowflakes around me, that's my gift, is knowledge, information. It's the finest form of currency. It is the most I can do for you. I can't do anything else for you because it's not my job. A. B. It's not within me to placate or to follow or groupthink. It isn't within me, because if I see something that I know will not work, in my heart of hearts, I cannot follow it. That's who I am. And the consensus has said, well, that we want groupthink. We want togetherness. We want positive. We want optimism. I can't give it to you. It's unethical. It's unethical. It's immoral for me to do that when I know you won't beat him or them. You won't. It's fine to try. I'm not telling you not to fight. I said to be smart about the fight. And I understand there's no desire to be smart because there's a desperation. There's an urgency. And now we have a deadline, apparently, imposed, and now more uncertainty and more chaos. And it sucks. And so I will do what I can on the sidelines to gather my knowledge for my own sake, me, and just question, is this really what I'm seeing? That these money movers are really that deep in it? And it's possible I don't answer those questions, but I'd like to know, because I think that's really the growing problem in all of crypto. That rhymes. Money, fiat, greed to a lesser degree, but fiat and the connection of fiat that spins underneath all of these pre-sales and all of this marketing and all of the influencers and everything, that's all come back to fiat greed, not the value of crypto in itself. That's where I'm going. That's my next journey. That's my next digging, because I would love to play a small part in answering that question once and for all.